Some states in the United States and other countries that practice capital punishment have a curious tradition for those on death row. The notorious last meal. Before facing execution, convicted individuals are allowed to pick any food and drink they want, adhering to specific rules. Let's take a look at some of the most unusual last meals by the famous and deadliest killers. Ted Bundy. Renowned criminal Ted Bundy admitted to killing 30 people between 1974 and 1978, but it's thought he may have murdered more. To fool and pacify his victims, Bundy would claim to be injured or would pretend to be someone he could trust, such a police officer. Ted was caught in 1975, but managed to escape twice before finally being caught for good in 1978. He was sentenced to the electric chair on February 10, 1980, and the execution took place on January 24, 1989, in Florida. Bundy chose not to have a special last meal and received the standard one, which included medium rare steak, eggs over easy, hash browns, toast with butter and jelly, milk and juice. Timothy McVeigh. In 1995, Timothy set off a large explosion in Oklahoma City. The explosion destroyed a structure, leaving almost 700 people injured and 168 dead. By examining a vehicle component from the explosion, police discovered him. They were able to link it to a Kansas rental truck. When McVeigh was detained in Oklahoma for possessing a firearm, he was apprehended. He was sentenced on June 2, 1997, and 11 days later, he was given the death penalty. He spent most of his time waiting for it in jail in Indiana. Finally, on June 11, 2001, they carried out the death sentence. For his last meal, McVeigh asked for something simple: 2 pints of mint and chocolate chip ice cream. John Wayne Gacy. On May 10, 1994, the creepy clown John Wayne Gacy passed away. You might want to skip this section if you're afraid of clowns since, before being apprehended, Gacy performed as Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown at charitable events. This particular clown is known for harming or killing young men he lured into his home. He was arrested in December 1978 and later sentenced to lethal injection in March 1980. Gacy spent the rest of his life at Menard Correctional Center, where he spent a lot of time painting. For his last meal, he had 12 fried shrimp, French fries, a pound of strawberries, and a bucket of original recipe chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Interestingly, before his conviction, Gacy managed 3 KFC restaurants. Despite everything else about him, he was a man who truly believed in what he was doing. Teresa Lewis. Teresa Lewis intended to take advantage of a $250,000 life insurance policy by planning the murders of her husband and stepson in October 2002. She enlisted the help of Rodney Lamont Fuller and Matthew Jesse Schallenberger, 2 people she had met at Walmart, to help her carry out the murder. It looks like Walmart offers a large range of services. Lewis allowed the hired men into her husband's trailer, trying to stage it as a botched robbery. Unfortunately for her, her husband was still alive when the police arrived, and he pointed to her as knowing the culprits. Following her attorney's advice, Lewis pleaded guilty in the hope of receiving leniency. However, she was sentenced to death by lethal injection. She spent her final days as the only woman on death row at the Fluvanna Correctional Center for Women in Troy, Virginia. For her last meal, Teresa Lewis chose some classic American dishes, including fried chicken, peas with butter, Dr. Pepper, and for dessert, apple pie. Alan Lee Davis. Alan Lee Davis murdered Nancy Wheeler and her 2 children, Catherine, then 5 years old, and Christina, then 10, on May 11, 1982. As Catherine attempted to flee, he shot her. Davis received the death penalty and passed away at Florida State Prison in Starka, Florida, while incarcerated on death row. He was put to death in the electric chair on July 8, 1999, but the execution was not without incident. Witnesses said that even after the electricity was shut off, he remained alive. The last person to be executed by electric chair in Florida was Davis. For his last meal, Davis chose a mostly seafood-themed menu, including lobster tail, half a pound of fried shrimp, and 6 ounces of fried clams. He also had half a loaf of garlic bread as an appetizer, a plate of French fries as a side, and washed it down with 32 ounces of A and root beer. Sacco and Vanzetti. Sacco and Vanzetti were immigrants from Italy and believed in anarchism. In 1921, they were found guilty of hurting a guard and a paymaster during a robbery in Braintree, Massachusetts, on April 15th, the year before. Despite many attempts to prove their innocence, they were famous worldwide, and people in many places, like North America, Europe, Tokyo, Sydney, Buenos Aires, and Dubai, protested against their conviction. Sadly, they were executed between midnight on August 22nd and 23rd in 1927. In 1977, the governor of Massachusetts, Michael Dukakis, said they were unfairly tried and convicted. He wanted to clear their names from any shame. For their last meal, they had a simple menu of soup, meat, toast, and tea. But we don't know what kind of soup or meat they had. Stephen Wayne Anderson. On May 26, 1980, Stephen Anderson committed a robbery at the home of retired teacher Elizabeth Lyman in Bloomington, California. When Lyman spotted Anderson inside her house, she screamed, leading him to shoot her. Anderson, who later admitted to taking the lives of at least 8 other people, was convicted for Lyman's murder and received a sentence on June 24, 1981. His execution took place on January 29, 2002, through lethal injection. For his last meal, Anderson requested 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, a pint of cottage cheese, hominy corn mix, peach pie, chocolate chip ice cream, and radishes. Ricky Ray Rector. Ricky Ray Rector caused a tragedy when he took a life at a dance hall after a friend was denied entry. Surprisingly, 3 days later, he agreed to surrender, but ended up taking the life of the police officer negotiating with him by shooting him in the back. Rector then attempted to end his own life by shooting himself in the head, resulting in severe brain damage. Despite his impaired condition, Rector received a death sentence by lethal injection. Arkansas Governor and future President Bill Clinton interrupted his presidential campaign to oversee the execution. For his last meal, Rector asked for steak, fried chicken, cherry cool, Aid, and pecan pie for dessert. Strangely, he ate everything except the pie, telling the guard that he was saving it for later. So what are your thoughts? What would you want for your final meal? Please let us know in the comments below.